How much does it really cost to go to a Formula One Grand Prix? Today, I tell you how much I spent at the 2022 Singapore Grand Prix, and this could be the most expensive F1 race to attend. Stick around. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the series where we break down my budget, every single dollar that I spent at a Grand Prix weekend, and today we are talking about Singapore. But first off, if you haven't seen the other videos in this series, you can check out them, beforehand or after. They'll be linked up here. But if you enjoy this series, don't forget to leave a like, leave a subscribe. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it because it seems like you guys are really enjoying this series, and I want to keep doing this as much as possible. So let's get into today's video. How expensive is Singapore? It's expensive. So if you've watched the other videos in this series, you may remember that there were 5 categories in the other 2 videos of, the main general spending. I try to kind of chunk it into categories to make it a little easier to understand, just, for you guys if you're trying to figure out how much a GP actually costs. But today, spicy, wait for it, 6 categories. I know, crazy. And here are those 6 categories. Category 1, the flight to Singapore. Category 2, the hotel in Singapore. Category 3, the Singapore ticket for the Grand Prix itself, obviously. Category 4, food and drink at the track and off the track, obviously. Number 5, MRT, Uber, public transit, all that stuff. And then category 6, as always, other. So just those random little things that don't really fit into a category. But first, we're going to start with category 1. So real quick, before we get into the first category, just a quick note that this is not a budget, like a penny pinching, see how much money we can save Grand Prix. This is like, I spent money, I bought a lot of food, I did extra things outside of the Grand Prix, but I still did try to keep the cost down in places I could. So it's not budget, but it's like it's a little above budget. So I hope that helps when you're kind of seeing how much I spent on things. So the first category, and simple as always, the actual flight to Singapore. I flew Japan Airlines, layover in Tokyo, and got to Singapore. It was a great flight. First of all, highly would recommend. And it cost $915, which honestly, if you think about a flight from LA to Singapore, which is a lot of time flying, like 2 days flying, that's a pretty good deal, honestly. So yeah, it's going to be the biggest chunk. And again, as always, depending on where you're located in the world, this will probably be different. If you're one of my Australian friends, this will probably be a lot cheaper. Technically, it's only about a 7-hour nonstop flight. But also it depends on when you buy it. Do you get a good deal? There's all these factors, but that is kind of what you can expect to pay around if you have a decent sized flight. Now the second category, which was also the second biggest expense, was a hotel. Now we got a mid-level hotel. It wasn't super nice, but also wasn't super budget, and we spent $445. Now, I shared a room with someone, which definitely helped keep the cost down, so kind of think about that if you're going by yourself. It does seem that lodging in Singapore, like everything else, is pretty expensive, so if you can find someone to go with, it'll really help keep that housing budget down. And we were there from Tuesday is when I checked in, Tuesday night, and then I checked out on Wednesday morning. So a little over a week for $445 during a Grand Prix weekend. I'll take it. That's great. That's a steal in my opinion, honestly. So, well done. And if you want to check out the hotel that we stayed at, Hotel Grand Pacific, this is obviously not sponsored by them, but overall solid hotel. Like I said, not super fancy, but a solid hotel. They gave us fresh bottles of water every day, which let me tell you, in the humidity in Singapore and the heat, well done. Well done, guys. All right, now the third category is the Grand Prix ticket itself. Now, if you've seen any of the videos I made from the race weekend, you may remember that we were sitting in Bay Grandstand, which is right near the end. It's the grandstand that they drive under in the tunnel, turn, I want to say 17, 18, whatever it is, overlooking Marina Bay with that, dope, whatever the hotel is called. I'll put a photo up. The hotel. It's a cool one. It's like 3 things, and it's a cool one. It was a great view and totally worth the money. Weirdly enough, though, we only spent $350 on our ticket for the entire weekend. And honestly, if you remember Silverstone, I spent $750 plus for as equally as a good seat. Obviously, you don't see as much because it's Singapore, it's a street track, but for what the ticket got you, it was pretty good. Now, one note I do have, and this might not even matter as much for next year, but the Singapore race itself has zones of like where you can be according to where your seats are, and some of it makes sense, but some of it, like where they did the drivers like meet and greet and questions, was in a specific zone, and like myself and Luke got into that zone, but then the girls were told that their tickets didn't work for that zone. So double check that when you're buying tickets of like where you can enter. Again, they're taking out the big grandstand, which is its own little section, so that might not even matter next year, but just a little heads up. Okay, now we get into the fourth cost, which is food and drink. And let me tell you, I did not think how much I'd spend on food and drink would surprise me after, going to Silverstone. And granted, this does account for, Tuesday night, we really didn't buy any food. So basically, Wednesday morning until Tuesday night. So about 6 days of food. So obviously, it's more than just spending money at the actual race weekend, but I'm going to use this number because it feels like a pretty good example of what to spend. If you wanted to, subtract a day, you could basically say from what I was spending, so my budget about $40 to $50 per day, and you can subtract from that. So what I ended up spending was $282.94, which was a lot because Singapore food and drink is so ridiculously expensive. Even if you try to buy food to just eat a sandwich or something, it's still pretty expensive, especially at the track. Track is crazy at prices. So just know that you're going to spend a lot of money on food and drink. But yeah, if you're maybe stay there for 4 days instead of 6 days, you could probably knock about $60 to $80 off that price, depending on how much you're spending and how much you're eating out. One note on the food and drink, I will say, I had a lot of bomb food in Singapore. The food and drink and coffee is delicious, but again, it is a very expensive city. So even when you leave the track itself, you're not really saving that much money on food unless you go to a 7-Eleven and buy a sandwich, which we did a lot. Now, the fifth category, very small, MRT and Uber, and bus, basically ways to get around the city. Incredibly cheap. Spent $14, and most of that was a $10 Uber that I spent. The rest was the train, and it charged me 13 cents at one point for a train ride. 13 cents. That's so cheap. To go from my hotel to the airport, which is about an hour on 2 trains, $1.75. $1.75. That's crazy. I have paid buku money in places to take a train from my hotel to the airport. So Singapore, if there's one thing that you do well, besides cleanliness, obviously, because it's insanely clean, it is public transit. Keep your prices low. We love you for it. Now, category 6, the other category. This is the one that can really kind of slim down your budget if you're looking to, cut on costs of what I spent. For example, for this one, it includes a SIM card that I purchased, a ticket to Universal Studios Singapore, because we all decided we wanted to go, and a ticket to the gardens. Now, I will say, do not cut out the gardens. Go to the Marina Bay Gardens. They are incredible. Fantastic place to go. Worth every penny. Do you need to go to Universal Singapore? No. Honestly, it's cool. Is it worth $80? If you go with a good group, yeah, it's worth $80. If you're going with by yourself, with one person, might not be worth the $80, honestly. Maybe go have a nice meal instead. But all three of those things combined, I spent $156 on the other category. So a little more than some of the other places, but again, I did a little more that was outside of the race itself. So feel free to kind of take this one, and you could probably just exit and take it away if you want to, except for the SIM card, but you can buy a much cheaper SIM card. I bought mine in the airport for $41. If you get it ahead of time online, you can get it for about $15. Great price. All right, the moment you all been waiting for, the total cost to go to the Singapore Grand Prix for 7 days. Here we go. And just a reminder, this is in US dollars, so convert as you need to. Drum roll, please. The total, to the best of my calculation, for 7 days, $2,162.94. Now, interestingly enough, and I just had to look this up from my previous script for my Silverstone video, this is still cheaper than Silverstone which was accounting for 4 days, by about $80, so it's close. But for $80 more, you can go to Singapore for an entire week and go to the Grand Prix, or you can go to Silverstone. Both great tracks to go to, but I will say when I was doing this budget, when I was writing down all the things, adding them all the food totals, I was getting nervous. Like, prices were adding up very quickly. Now, I will say, as an American using the US dollar, I know that the conversion is on my side. For example, when I saw something that was a dollar, Singaporean dollar, I knew for me it was 75 cents. So a great conversion. Whereas most of the people I was with were New Zealanders, Australians, and for them it was like $1.50, $1.60. So if it was $1 in Singaporean, it was about $1.50, $1.60 for Australian. So a big swing there. That's why I'm saying, like, please convert what I spent into whatever currency you use, because it could be significantly different. But that being said, that is a fantastic deal to be able to do so much and be there so long. And as always, I'd like to give you a few money saving tips for Singapore, because I do have a few, even though it is quite the expensive city. Now, the first tip I have, which I have for every single Grand Prix, is take food in if you can. Singapore they're very thorough with searching your bags, but they will let you bring food in. So if you can go to the store, buy some things to make sandwiches, I would highly recommend it. It is worth saving the money at the track, because food is very expensive at the track, as well as, bringing a water bottle so you can fill up your water bottle rather than buying a water bottle there. But if you're going to buy food, you do need to find a grocery store, and grocery stores are kind of weird to find sometimes, or just go into a 7-Eleven like I did a few times, buy a couple sandwiches and a bag of chips, call it a day. You'll save a ton of money, but also, take one day to have food at the track, because it is fun, and there's some good food at the track. The second tip that I have for saving money is making sure, as always, that you're going with people. Using that to, split hotel rooms to save money there, on things like Ubers from the airport. Basically, if you take people with you, if there's people with you, you are going to save so much money. Yes, obviously there's some things that will still be the same price. Your flight will still be the same price. Your ticket for the race will be the same price. But even food can be cheaper sometimes because of what you can buy, things you can make, hotels that you can stay in, where you can get a really good deal and not spend a lot of money like we did. So that is one of my best tips, is please find a friend to go with, because it's more fun and it's so much cheaper. The third money saving tip I have, and is the last one, but is the most important, is if you do not know, 1, food is expensive in Singapore no matter where you go, but 2, alcohol. If you are going to be purchasing alcohol, just don't do it at a bar. Don't do it at a bar. Don't do it at a restaurant, because the taxes in Singapore are insane. Even going into a 7-Eleven to buy a beer, a regular 12-ounce bottle of beer, was around $8, $9, $10 in 7-Eleven. In restaurants, a good price for a beer was about $20. Blew my mind. It was worse than LA prices. So if you're gonna drink, if you're gonna have a good time, have some alcohol, go get some booze from the store. It will be cheaper, but the big tip here: get alcohol in duty free. I spent $12 US on a liter of vodka that I was able to bring into the country, because it's a liter of liquor and then a liter of beer is what you can bring in, basically. And it saved us so much money, because we could just mix it with things, and you can go buy a Coke or something, which was way cheaper. But then we bought this bottle of vodka for $12 rather than inside the store, and you buy this little tiny bottle of vodka for $30, $40. So if you're going to be drinking alcohol, there are some really good ways you can save money. Duty free is the one for sure, and please, dear God, just don't buy alcohol in restaurants, because it is ridiculously expensive. But now I'd love to hear your best tips. Have you been to the Singapore Grand Prix? Do you live in Singapore? Give us your best tips below in the comments of places to go, things to do, places to get some food. And if you have other ways that you can save money going to this Grand Prix, please share them. I would love to know. We're all learning together here. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, leave a sub, click that sub, click the notification bell, because you want to know when the next one of these series will come. And this does sort of wrap up this series for this year. Probably. But I might try to go to one more race before the end of the year. I know. I don't know what I'm doing either, guys, but who needs money? Am I right? Speaking of, subs so I can monetize on YouTube at some point and get paid for ads. That'd be cool. But thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I'm so glad you all enjoyed this series, and this series is not done. I have plenty more videos that I want to make from Europe and from traveling this year around F1, so stay tuned for those. The next video will probably be how much did I spend to travel Europe for a month and follow F1. I am also nervous to know how much I spent. I'm very scared, but that video will probably come out in about 2 weeks or so. So thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I swear to God! I'm alright with this. I'm fine with Lewis Paul. I'm totally fine with this. Race is starting. It's almost starting. It's feeling there. It's basically there. It's basically there. Aww.